Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this, our first App Studio clinic. My name's Nigel Goult, Director of Olympic, and I'm here today again with Nick Duffill, owner of Harport Consulting and obviously the developer behind App Studio. We're going to try and make this an informal webinar, so it will be sort of interactive. We've had some registrations with people who've submitted questions and we'll be addressing those first. So I'm just going to let you know roughly what that format's going to be. We're recording this, but it will only be shared with the people that attend, so it won't be put on any other public arena. Everyone will be muted when they join the webinar, and when it comes to asking your questions, then we'll unmute you so you can directly interact with Nick to discuss the topics that you've submitted. We'll address all the questions that have been submitted by attendees on registration first. And if anybody here is on a time restriction, if they can let me know by sending a little message in the chat, we'll try and move yours up the list so that we get that addressed first. If there's any other questions as we go through the webinar, then please enter them into the chat window, and then once we've covered all of the pre-submitted questions, we'll cover anything that's been added while the webinar's been in session. So again, you can just use that in the chat window. And then once we've covered all of the questions and issues, I believe Nick's going to take a few minutes to talk about his workbook app, which describes how to use double-sided maps, as you may have seen in the recent knowledge management webinar hosted by Ludo. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Nick, and Nick will call out the first questions, and then when that happens, I will unmute you if you're here, and you can then engage directly with Nick. So I just need to. You should be present.
That's good.
You presenter now, I think.
I think so. Well, very warm welcome. Thank you for everybody for joining us and giving up the time this afternoon. What I'll do is I'll share my MindManager screen. So, as Nigel said, it's an informal session. So get this right first. So please do interrupt. It's not. Either raise your hand and Nigel can unmute you, or send a chat message and Nigel can unmute you. We can make this a discussion rather than a presentation. We want to make sure that you get your questions answered rather than just talk about stuff that might or might not be interesting. So Nigel's prepared for me this this map of questions that we got, and what I'll do is I'll go through the questions that we had before the webinar and answer those as Nigel said. And I think if you had a question but you're not listed here, then please, or if you've got another question, please do interrupt. So we had quite a few from Hans to start with. First one was about actions in App Studio, and these are the actions that it takes when you click a button or when an event occurs. What I can do, just for reference, I'll open an app, and then we can look at those, and I can cover them quickly. So
shall I just unmute Hans for now?
Yeah, do yeah, by all means. We can always mute people again. So
yes.
Okay, Hans, you there now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so stop me if I stop making sense or if I don't make any sense. So I'm in a configuration map for an app now, which is the tree that describes how the ribbons and tabs and the groups and the buttons and the menu buttons work. So in a button, we select the topic that represents a button and edit the element. And we have the property, in fact, alphabetically, is the action. This is the action that the button takes. And these are the actions that are currently built into App Studio. So most of them, in fact almost all of them, I would say you can do with a macro. So you could have a macro that can do any of the rest of it, any of the rest of these actions. So these actions are pre-programmed into App Studio for convenience and for speed, so that you can create an app with limitations. You can create an app without any coding at all, just with configuration. And so I'm not going to describe all of these individually here. The most often used ones are run a macro, so you can tell it to run a macro when a button is clicked, or open a file or a folder. There's open a file, and you can give it a password if you want to do that. So things like those two things are probably the most commonly used. Or you can create you can ask it to browse and look for files, or you can open folders, or you can open a link. That's often used as well. So if you use open link with a URL, it'll open a web page in the browser or in the built-in browser in MindManager. So as I said, all of these can be done. They could be implemented with macros, but they're built into App Studio for convenience. And there's a question later about the roadmap. We do plan to add some more actions to this, but they need to be fairly generic. They need to stay sort of fairly high level. In the help, in the App Studio help, I open the online developer guide. Let me reduce this window a bit. Are you seeing that that browser screen, Nigel?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great. Okay, so this is the help file that you get with the help button in the App Studio tab, and under technical reference we have configuration, which is the configuration of apps, configuration elements, and then these are the different kinds of elements you can configure, and the ones that have actions are the ribbon button and menu button. So under ribbon button we have the list of all the properties, and under the action property we have detailed description of all the actions. So to find out what they do, there is a little help string in the dialog box, but there's more detailed description. I haven't quite got the edge of the browser on the window. There's a more detailed description for each of them in the help documentation. So have a look in the help documentation to get more information about the actions. Second question from Hans was the roadmap for App Studio. That's a good question. We probably could talk for half an hour about that, but we won't do that now. What I've done is I've summarised those under two headings: strategic roadmap and a technical roadmap for it. Strategically, what we would like to see App Studio doing is making it easier for organisations to use MindManager more effectively by having more people who can create custom solutions for it and adapt it for their organisation using App Studio. And that has always been the goal of App Studio, to make it easier to bridge the gap between a business process and MindManager. So MindManager's got a fantastic set of technical features. It takes quite a lot of skill and experience to turn those into a tool for a business process, and that's how App Studio can help, by making that transferable. You can transfer that expertise to somebody else. You can give somebody else a button to click to do something that it took you half an hour, half a day to work out how to do. So that's the first strategic goal on the roadmap. The second one is within that framework, develop tools for building corporate knowledge bases. We see corporate knowledge bases as a really good application for MindManager, and something that App Studio can help to do. So as an example, well, not a very good example, but I have a tab in MindManager now for me. This is Harport. I'm not going to go through all the buttons here, but basically what I have are stuff I use all the time, like a daily dashboard and a map of checklists. I use those every day. I've got shortcuts for MindManager resources that I frequently use. And then I've got templates for the types of work that I do. So I've got templates that I've created for different types of projects as a starting point. So this, and then I've got the set of tools, specialist tools that I use inside MindManager. So that's my particular view of using MindManager. That wouldn't be anybody else's. Somebody else may have a different set of things that they use frequently, or templates they want to use, or tools they want to use, or resources. For example, inside a company, this could be resources inside your organization, MindManager experts inside your organization. So that tab, that Harport tab, is an example of, if you like, a small company tab in MindManager with everything that I use on a regular basis, just available within one click, and that was built with App Studio. We'd also like to make it easier for people to share their projects, share App Studio products, and we might even have, some point in the future, we might try and set up something on GitHub, which means that that developers of apps could find template ones, they could take somebody else's and modify that and share apps and macros there. So those are the strategic things for the future. On the technical side, we've got a bug list. There's bugs in all kinds of every software. We've got some in App Studio, of course. Want to add some more features, more actions, events, tokens, and try and add some things like business topics, because they can be really helpful inside MindManager. We could support those with App Studio. Add some more features for developers to make it easier and quicker to create apps. Something that's come up in conversations lately has been how do you reuse some macro or some content across more than one app, and it'd be good to have a solution to that. We'd also like to offer consultant developers of App Studio the ability to issue licenses, or little licenses inside their organization, so they can have apps with different levels of functionality depending on the user. And then at some point in the future, I'll finish the macros masterclass, which I started many years ago, which perhaps even some of the people on the call today saw, that has been sitting there waiting for the right moment. That might come one day. So that's the roadmap for App Studio. Hans also asked about ways to create images. Images, they always take a disproportionate amount of time. You can copy MindManager icon files and images from inside the library. So in App Studio, there's a button on the tools menu for browsing. You can browse to the MindManager library, browse to the icons files, make copies of those, and make copies of those and use them in App Studio. So I think there was an app that you had, Nigel, wasn't there? Something Studio that created icon files and created images. Do you remember what that was? Some time ago you pointed something out to me. We'll look that up. It was
Yeah,
something Studio, wasn't it?
yeah, I'll make a note of that. I may still
Yeah.
have that on my system. I haven't used it recently, but yeah, I did use something.
I found
I'll
that
make a
really
note.
useful for creating icon files, because it would give you some starting points for the images, and that made it easy to export a set of icons from that. We'll look that up and add that perhaps to the resources map.
Yeah, super.
But also there are thousands, if not millions, of icon files available online, and images, and all you really need to use, you can use either icons or image files, transparent GIFs or transparent, well, any transparent image will do, transparent bitmap. You just need either 32 by 32 pixels or 16 by 16 pixels. So there's lots of conversion tools online as well, where you can convert from one format to another. Working with templates, it might be Hans, you might need to explain this a bit more. I think you can use MindManager templates with App Studio, but if you want to use templates with other let's say Microsoft Office apps, you might need to have some macro support to be able to do that. Is that the right question? Do you want to be able to create new, for example, a new spreadsheet from a template spreadsheet?
Well, I think this one is the question I had with being able to export to Word and Excel and using a preset for that.
Oh, right. Okay. But using the MindManager export features?
Yeah, so creating a button where I say, right, I want to export to Word, like you have the function within MindManager to export to
Yeah.
Word, but then put it inside the button. And
Yes. Yes.
at the moment, I know you have a preset function
Yes.
if you do a import from Excel, but
Yes.
there's not yet a preset function to do an export.
Okay.
It would
Okay.
be nice to have something like that, so that if you create a mind map with certain content, that you are able to create a Word document from that is always in the same layout, using a
Yeah.
template
Yeah.
underneath it,
Yeah.
with only the parts of the mind map that you want to have involved in the export.
Yes. Yes. Well, we've got a related question, a very similar question, which we'll come to later. But to answer that now, at the moment, well, there's an API, there's an application programming interface inside MindManager, which you can use to automate MindManager, and that doesn't expose any of the export functions. So we can't automate the export functions that are built into MindManager. But that's not to say it's not possible. There's two ways. One is that the export functions like import or export to Excel in MindManager may have an interface which just isn't published, and we might be able to do some research and find that. And I think that's quite likely that we could find that. The other is you could have your own written or write your own and just have a custom export to one of the Office products. Excel's not too bad, it's fairly logical. Word is a lot more complicated. Nigel knows a lot about exporting to Word, and Word can be quite involved. But Excel can be fairly straightforward, and it's fairly easy to export to CSV, which of course Excel can open. Then you don't even need to communicate to the Excel application itself. But I'll come back to that point, because there's a possibility that we could automate some of the other functions in MindManager. So in MindManager, under options and under add-ins, we have listed all the most of the complex import and export are implemented as add-ins in MindManager itself, so they're little components within MindManager product. So things like the Excel linker, it is possible that that has an interface, but it just isn't published anywhere. But we might be able to find it. We might be able to talk direct to that and tell it to do things. So that's an area for some more research to be able to do that. It's not part of the standard published API, but it may still be available. So as an example, the where is it? Can't see the browser here. There's a browser. There it is. That built-in browser function I discovered recently has got an API, and you can ask it to open web pages directly. You don't have to. It's not hidden, so we can get at that, and that's something I would like to support in App Studio in the future, and that may be true for others as well. So there's a possibility there that we can do that. Just for completeness, if you ask App Studio to create a new document to open a map, and you give it a template, you can give it the name and address of a template, then it will create a new map from a template. So your next question was linking to files in SharePoint, and I don't have an answer to that today. But if you've got a SharePoint server that is public, that you could send us a link to a MindManager map. We can try and work out what needs to be done to open that locally in the client, if that's possible. So I haven't got anything built into App Studio today to do that, but it's possible that there's a way, technically a way to do that. So if you can give us some help with that, that would be really good. That would be helpful.
Hi, Nick. I just want to jump in on that because
Yeah.
Renee had a question which is kind of related that, which is regards to linking to and opening files and things from such as from web services such as Dropbox, etc.
Yes. I want to add places to App Studio. I haven't looked at the technicalities of that. If you have Dropbox synchronized with a local folder, then of course you can directly access the copy of that file on disk. But if it's not synchronized with a local folder, like some of the online services don't do that, then we may be able to support places in MindManager. So where you've created a place. No, not that. Stupid boy. Where you've created a place under here. I haven't got any, and I've only got Google Maps, Google Drive on there. It may be possible to directly access files in an online storage through App Studio, and that's on the to-do list to do that. Does that cover that point, do you think, Nigel? Nigel's fallen asleep.
Sorry, lost the mouse. Couldn't unmute. Yeah, I think that covers that.
Yeah.
As you say, if they're local, then it's not an issue. But obviously, if they're not synced, then there is nothing at the moment that we can do about that.
Well, I just haven't had a chance to investigate that, but support for places is on the roadmap for App Studio. It's on the technical features map.
Okay, great.
Okay. So themes for mind maps, or choose between different themes. There's no built-in feature. There's no built-in action in App Studio to do that today, but you could do that with a macro fairly easily. So that is exposed in the API. The API, for anyone who's developing macros, working with macros, you'll find the names of things in the API are sometimes really ancient. And how many versions can I say? At least 15 or more versions ago, maybe back to MindManager X5 or 6. What is now called the theme was then called the style. So you'll see that under export style and assign style. But it breaks a lot of things if they change the name of objects in the API. So we've still got some really old names for things, but they are in there. So yes, you could quite easily have a little macro that offers you a set of theme templates and lets you choose and then applies it to the map, which is it's very similar to what you could do, or really the same to what you could do through the theme organizer here. You could choose a theme and apply it there. You could do the same thing with a little macro to do that. And then last of the hands questions was filtering. Now this is a good area. This is a good question. There are no the power filter that you can configure in the ribbon in MindManager is not exposed in the API that I can find anyway. I've not been able to find that. So if you create a power filter here and you want to use that inside a macro, there isn't any way to do that today. There is a partial implementation of the show hide menu. So in MindManager for Windows, you have this show hide menu, and you can switch things on and off here. You can hide the call out topics, or you can hide relationships, and that is partly exposed in the API. So there is an ability to switch on and off certain types of object in the map, but it's not up to date. So things like slides or background objects are not supported there. So that's out of date. So generally, if you want to do filtering using, if you want to do customized filtering without using the power filter, then a custom macro to do filtering is probably the only way to do that. And we can provide skeleton code for filtering maps. Done that many times. So you can set the filter flag on a topic, and that will either hide it or fade it depending on which flag you set. You just need some code to work out whether or not that's the right thing. In fact, there's a lot more that you can do with a custom filtering macro than you can do with power filter. So if you want to do something like show me my next actions that are possible because all their predecessors have been completed, that's not something you can do in the power filter today, but you could do that with a macro. So it's more complex to write, but it's much more powerful if you have program-based or programming-based filtering there. But Nigel and I were talking before the call about some kind of little standardization for macro-based filtering. Might be able to put something together with that to make that a bit easier. So that's not a great answer. There is an answer, but it's not an ideal answer. It would be ideal if we could get at the power filter from within macros or from App Studio, but that's not available today in the API. Hans, was there anything else, any other points that you wanted to bring up at this stage?
Well, I understand that there is on the roadmap also you're working on the option to use folders within the app folder, subfolders.
Sorry, say that again.
You're working on using or the option to use subfolders within the app folder.
Yes, that would be helpful with it. The technical ones, yeah, at the moment the app folder is just a flat folder, and all files have to be in that one folder. But there are some applications where we've got a large number of files, so we're hoping to add subfolders inside app folders, which will make it easier to put all the, for example, put all the images together in one place instead of everything mixed together. So that's on the roadmap. But today that doesn't work. That it thinks the subfolder is a nested app, but that design element is going away. We're just going to make it plain subfolders. Okay.
So does that end your questions then, Hans? Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Send us a message.
Okay, I'll mute you now. Right, Andreas isn't on from what I can see, so I don't know whether you want to address it just for everybody else here.
Yeah,
Obviously,
just
Andreas.
Andreas, it's he does MindManager based coaching in Austria. He does MindManager training as well, but he coaches people in general things like getting ready to interview for a new job or something like that, and he's been interested in creating some sort of app to help with that. So his questions are quite high level. What do I need and what do the clients get? I'll just cover the answers to that in case that's helpful for anybody else. If you want to create an app for any other user to use, you'll need a consultant license key, consultant developer key. But everything else is going to be within MindManager or within App Studio. And the clients will need to install the add-in, which will be free to them. And you'll create and install a map. So an installer map contains everything that an app needs. You just give them that map, and App Studio recognizes it and installs the app and creates the tabs and groups and buttons and other artifacts. So that's just a quick overview. But there was a related question to which the answer is Nigel's video, which I think is Bart's question. Have we got Bart on the call?
Yeah, we have.
We
I'm
do.
just going to unmute Bart now.
Okay.
I'm on.
Bart.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
So I think, unless I've misunderstood the question, we do have a video. Nigel did a video on YouTube, which if you haven't seen, would take you through creating an app from scratch to start one from nothing.
Yes, I've seen this, but
Yeah.
on the other the previous webinar, you just did some clicks, and it was
Yeah.
so very easy to build an app. But I'll go back to the video. That's
It's
probably
like
my
a
problem.
magic trick. Yeah. Well,
Bart, if you have any specific hurdles that you hit while looking at that, then please reach out to me. I'm quite happy to do a 15-30 minute session with you on WebEx to go through things like that if you'd like.
Okay.
yeah.
Yes. Thanks.
Also, in the help file, in the App Studio help file, we have a set of tutorials,
Yeah.
and that starts from creating a new empty app, and this is a text description instead of a video. It's often easier to follow a video, but this is it written out in words anyway, so you have it in text as well.
I've seen this one too, but I think probably reading or looking at the video always takes a little bit longer for me because of the language gap, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's a kind of a handicap. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
But
I'd be happy to go through that with you, Bart,
Okay,
at some point.
thank
If
you.
you want to just reach out to me and arrange some time that's convenient for us both, I'd be happy to spend some
great.
time and just go through that, and then we can just take it at your own pace.
Yes. Okay. I get with a specific question at your address. Thank you very much.
No
okay.
problem.
Thank you. Right, Thomas. This connects to one of Hans's questions, and was also asked by Matt, who we got on the call too, and is a great question. Can you launch any MindManager command with App Studio? And the answer is not really, unfortunately. By that, my understanding is, can I use App Studio to, for example, insert numbering? Which is something you could do from the toolbar. You just go to the insert tab and click on numbering. Unfortunately, as far as I can find at the moment, there's no way to do that within the API. The API doesn't expose all MindManager's existing commands. It just gives you ways to automate the map and some of the user interface, but not all of it. And I haven't found a way to get to a command and say, here, do this now, fire your button now. But I'm still looking for that. I tried to get some help from the developers, MindManager developers, but I haven't got any good answers yet.
The idea was behind that you have some menus in MindManager where you have to go through several steps, and then you have to click 3 or 4 times until you get there where you want. And this is already a knowledge you need to understand where to click, and that was the idea behind.
That's right. Yeah, and that's where macros started, certainly in Microsoft Office and other products. A macro was something that was recorded, so you could say record my clicks now, and it would then replay them. And we don't have that feature today. We just have the ability to program today. I'm still investigating that. You could potentially send shortcut keys to MindManager. So my own experience of that is it works most of the time, but not always. And sometimes you have to wait for it to do things. Shortcut keys is one possibility. It's not a very good possibility. So that is still under investigation. We never say never. It may be possible to do it, but I just haven't found the way to do it yet. That it'll be a question of finding the command inside MindManager. So all of the
Okay.
buttons in the ribbon have got a command behind them. But even if you can find the right command, whether you can force it to be clicked effectively is another question which I haven't found. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the add-ins do have extended interfaces which aren't published, but they should be findable too. So with a bit of research, we might be able to find ways to automate the Word export or the XML, sorry, the Excel import and export. So that may be possible to do. But the last resort is always a custom macro to do whatever it is that you want to do, or a custom piece of code, which takes it into the area of programming. But if it's not in the API, if it's not something we can control, then that is the last option, is to just do it with some macro code instead.
But it is still politics of MindManager that they want to be an open space that everybody can program something, because I'm not sure if they're still on the same track as before. In the beginning, they were very, very open, but actually, I don't have that impression.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think the reason that we have this capability, this API, and we can create things like Macro Studio, like App Studio, and Nigel can create his add-ins, is because so much of the MindManager functionality itself is built with add-ins. So
Okay.
this meant that it was much easier for them to contract out, or to get another team to do a particular function, like Excel specialists can work on Excel separately without it being part of the total MindManager product. So the API enables all of these features, and there have been many add-ins that have come and gone over the years. But it's been a really good process for them to be able to have an API to create these. But none of this needs you to automate the buttons, the rest of the buttons in the product. So I think that's probably never been a priority for them to implement that.
Okay.
I think the API covers probably 60% of what's in MindManager. It's no more than 60%. There's lots that it doesn't cover yet.
I
But
see.
we're lucky that these are all still part of the product. Otherwise, there'd be fewer reasons, I think, for the API to be supported. So, live in hope. We can maybe do some more research, maybe find a way to do this. But I agree, it will be a great thing to do, to just automate normal MindManager features to make them easy to use.
That's my intention, because with that, I'm working as a consultant, and I'm doing audits, certification audits. So I'm going out controlling quality management systems, mainly in the automotive. And there are lots of questions to do. And when you're doing an audit, you don't need to deal with your product or your program. You want to work.
That's right.
And to make it easy and to use this is the reason when I started in 2005 to use MindManager, was already the possibility that you can store handwritten notes, and you can convert it later, because in the interview, the correction that the device does not learn wrong things is very strong effort. So I did that once, and then I said, no, I need another way, because I cannot do a second layer in the audit that is correction of handwriting.
Yeah.
And that was why I started with MindManager. And now the main main advantage I have is that I can make a chaotic interview, because my interview partners are not following me all the time. They are answering different things.
Exactly.
And I can write that down, and after that I can give the structure to it, then making a report from it. And that is a whole thing I do since 2005 is my way to do it within MindManager. And I would like to sell that to people who are doing assessments.
Yes.
That is my interest. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, as I say, I shall continue to try and get an answer to this, see if it is possible in some way. But it would be good to be able to do that. Maybe there's a different way altogether. I don't know. So I'll see if I can find out some more about that. Okay. Thank you, Thomas. Did you have any other questions on App Studio at this point?
On this point, now, in the end, if it's not answered, I have one question which is very important for me as well. That is according to the Gantt export to Excel.
Right.
Because I'm doing my schedules, my audit schedules, I'm creating it with MindManager. And when you use a normal Excel export feature, what is now the big one, you have the structure of the mind map in it. You have no line structure like normally Excel does. So if you want to use it for filtering and everything, I have to rearrange it to have a timetable that I can distribute to my customers.
Right.
And when you go out of a Gantt diagram, you have another structure in Excel, but you only have the task information.
Right.
And the question is, can I add information from the branches to that export, that we have more columns, so that we have the line structure, but more information than only the task information. And I sent a mind map to you yesterday late. I couldn't do it earlier with an example of that, how I think about it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So did you send that to me or to?
Yeah,
Um,
I've made some
right.
screenshots to make it understandable.
Okay. I'm not seeing that at the moment.
Mm.
I'll contact you about that.
Yeah, okay.
And the Gantt export is only reading it's really reading data from the map.
Hmm.
So it it's it uses some of the calculations that come out of the Gantt chart, but there's nothing there that can't be derived from the map. So a custom export of a project straight to Excel is possible. It doesn't have to go through the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart has that feature as a convenience,
Oh,
but
okay.
all the information there comes out of the map itself. So
Hmm.
there's nothing, there's no dependency on the Gantt chart itself to be able
Okay.
to create a custom export to CSV out of a project map, which
Mm.
included other information, would be perfectly possible.
Okay. That would be very interesting as well, because I'm
Okay.
much more quicker when I'm doing that in the mind map. I can make drag and drop and make use
Yeah.
the task features to make a structure. I change the beginning and
Yes.
everything go through and all this, and then I export it in Excel. But then I have additional effort because I have to put it back into lines. Yeah.
Yes.
That,
Yes. Yes.
mm.
So did you send something to MindManager to the developers as well?
No, not
Or
yet.
not yet? Okay. Because
I just asked if there is a possibility. I've been talking to Mr. Obesa,
oh yes. Yep.
and he told me that you were programming the Gantt chart in the past,
Yes.
and that was the reason why I asked here.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm doing some changes at the moment, but I can only make changes that have been approved by the product team at MindManager. So,
Mhm.
but if Rhino can submit a request, then they could add that to the backlog.
Ah, okay.
But
Yeah,
we could short circuit that anyway. We can take the information straight out of the map and put it
mhm.
out to Excel.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so next up
And
is Matt. Are
Matt's,
you there, Matt?
well, I think Matt's first question was pretty similar to the earlier ones. Can you trigger MindManager functions from inside App Studio or from a macro? And as I said, that's something that is still under investigation. We don't have an answer for that today. Then Matt's second question was multiple steps in an action. That's a great suggestion, and we have that on the roadmap. So at the moment, a button can do one thing. If you want to do something complex, then you could have a macro that does it. But it would be nice if you could just add 2 or 3 actions to a button or an event. And that's something that's on the roadmap for the future to be able to do that. Today, it only does one thing. You can only define one action per button. But in the future, it'd be nice to be able to trigger other actions. So that is on the roadmap.
Perfect. That was it. Those are the only questions I had.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, that covers the questions we had
Yeah, that's
submitted.
covered everything.
Has
And there's
anything come in while we've been
n-
talking?
not that we haven't addressed or that we'll address offline anyway. I've got a quick question about the App Studio community. I think René's had trouble. He's registered, but for some reason I haven't seen the activation email. So I will look into that, René, and
Yep.
sort that out
Yep.
and contact you directly with that. So I think now, Nick, you were going to just do a quick overview of this double-sided map
Yeah.
thing, showing the
Yes.
App Studio app you've built for that, and
Yes.
then we'll probably call it a day.
Okay. Well, this is it's not really part of the clinic today, but if people are interested, I'll tell you what we're doing, what's coming up soon on App Studio. Don't know if anybody caught the webinar last week about knowledge management and MindManager. So knowledge management is the current marketing campaign for the first half of this year, and they're focusing on knowledge management. And next week there's going to be an ebook coming out about using MindManager in knowledge management, and the heart of that is a new idea about double-sided maps with a front and a back. And what we called that is we called that workbooks. And a workbook it's a MindManager map, but it contains two maps. So there's a front and a back. And on the front you have what you're working on, the outcome, the project plan, the document, the brainstorm, the marketing plan, whatever it might be that you're creating with MindManager. That's the focus of the work that you're trying to do. And on the back of a workbook, you have the process. You describe how you're doing, what you've done. You keep a log of what you've done. You keep a log of the lessons that you've learned on the way. So this is all the information that is around the piece of work. And up until now, and I think in all mind mapping software, both of these things have tended to be combined together in the same map. So you do a map about a project, and that's got it's got your requirements, actions, plan, schedule, people, something about the process, links to resources, that kind of thing. So everything is together in one big map. And what we're suggesting is with a workbook, you split those into a front and a back, a working map and a coaching map. And the advantage of doing that is that it really improves the focus of what you're working on. It means you can put to one side some of the background information. You can also have a coaching map, the back of the map, prepared by somebody else, so you can follow a process that's already been written, and you can review it and discuss it separately. So separating the what and the why and how of your work means that you can focus on improvement, you can have a discussion about how you did something. And lastly, you can then take a coaching map and use it again somewhere else. So if you did a project, you have the project work on the front, you have the process on the back, which the process you developed as you did the project. You can then take that process map and put it on the back of another project and use it again somewhere else. Let me show you an example. You've got some templates here. Here's a small project workbook, and this is a template map. This is a template for a small project, and we're using the Moscow framework there to give a really clear description of what the project would and won't do. And on the right hand side we've got some placeholders for things like a time plan, people, actions, all the normal kind of stuff you put in a MindManager map. Then on the back of this map, and the back is implemented just with an attachment in the central topic, and we click on that. On the back of this map, but contained within it, we have the description of the process. So this is a whole separate map but it belongs to the front. It's got a flow chart about how you get through delivering a small project. It's got some orientation about whether this is the right tool to use, the right environment, what you need to know. And then it's got information about strategic approaches in small projects, the methods, tools you might use, techniques, so that there's a whole lot of information here, a lot of resources about running a small project, which is separate to the actual project itself. So that this is the map, the coaching map on the back, and this can help you work through the process of delivering a small project. Now what we're doing is creating a little app for this. So next week, we're just waiting for the release of the ebook really. We're going to ship a little workbooks app using App Studio, which makes it easy to flip between the front and the back of a map. So if you're working on the front of the map here, I can click a button and just flip straight to the back. So I'm just clicking a button in the quick access toolbar at the top, and with one button I can flip between the front and the back of the map. That makes it really easy to switch over to your coaching map and update the log or change your process or whatever you need to do. And if you start a new map, if I start an empty map and I try to flip to the back of it, it says we don't have a back yet. Do you want to create one? And it'll help you to create an attachment. And I can create an attachment or choose one from disk. And this map has now got a front and a back. So this is now a double-sided map with some stuff on the front, an attachment in the central topic, and a map on the back describing the process. So the advantage of this little workbook app is you've just got one click to turn over a workbook to go onto the back of the map. It's easy to add coaching maps from other templates. You can put a map on the back of other things like a slide deck or a flowchart map that don't have a central topic. You can still have a coaching map on the back, and you can set it so that it automatically opens when you open the workbook or the work map. So that's going to be a little add-in a little app that'll come out next week, as well as you can put the button in the quick access toolbar. It creates a button in the view menu. There's a flip workbook button there, and that's got, if you click on it, it flips the workbook over. It's got help and support and other stuff and help map. If I go back to this one here and do manage coaching map, there's a little dialog that lets you change the map on the back or configure it to open automatically or rename it. There's lots of management stuff there, but really it's only doing what you can mostly do through managing attachments anyway. So it just uses MindManager attachments. There's nothing special about it. My phone's ringing. There's nothing special about the technology that it's using, so it's compatible with other MindManager users. You can publish it, you can export it. So there's a few things to work with there, but the main idea is that by separating the what of your work from the how you're doing it, you can focus on those two things separately. You can have a better focus, you can have a smaller and a simpler map for the client or the customer to look at, and on the back you can have much more detail and keeping records, keeping a journal, lessons learned, all those kind of things. You can have out of sight from the main project work, and you can then reuse this coaching map on a different project. So you can take your lessons from one project to another and reuse that. And with the flip workbook, the workbook app just makes that a bit easier to use. The other place that it creates a command is in the context menu. So you can right click in the background of a map. If you're in a different ribbon tab altogether, you can still flip at any time from the background context menu. So look out for that next week.
I've got a question here,
Yeah.
Nick, from Thomas. He said, is it possible to use the double-sided map that the coaching map can be closed separately from changes?
Can be
Closed
so,
separately from changes. I'm just going to unmute Thomas.
yeah.
Okay.
The idea that came into my mind immediately is that I can offer both to my customer so that he gets a work map and the explanation on the double side. But
Yeah.
then I need to close the second one that he cannot change it in any way.
Yeah. Yes, you could. There's a couple of things you could do. You could password protect the coaching map, then they couldn't read it at all. Or you could put contributor permissions on that, so you can put a password on being able to modify it, so they can read it but not modify it without a password, which is probably what you want to do. So the file info content control settings, you could set a password on there and stop the user from being able to edit the map effectively, so they can read it. But yes, it's just a regular map. It's just the coaching map is a normal map, except that it's stored as an attachment in the central topic there.
But you I could, in the moment I start with a consultancy license for App Studio, I could offer such a thing for my customer that he get all these switch features and have the double-sided map to use it as an app coming from App Studio.
We're going to make the app free for use. So the app itself, the workbooks app, you could provide to your client if they're willing to install the App Studio add-in, then they could use this workbooks app to work with the maps you give them.
That's a perfect idea. Yeah, it's a really great thing.
Thank you. And there's an ebook coming out. I think it comes out on Monday, which describes the process of using this for knowledge transfer and to focus on continuous improvement, as well as just creating maps. But to do some work, you always think about how you're going to do it better, and just having those two things separate is a reminder to think separately about the process as well as the deliverable.
Just to clarify, that's from All You Do, isn't it? That ebook, and it's
That's
not
right, yeah.
based on the actual App Studio app for it.
No, it's not. That is the Alludo marketing campaign, which is about knowledge management. So you won't find any mention in the ebook about this app. This app is following up from that.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I guess we'll wrap up now. If there's no more, I don't think there's any more questions other than some community stuff that I've got to look into.
Okay.
Do you want to hand that back to me now?
Yeah, I will do. Well, you can probably take it back anyway. Last thing I was going to mention was in the App Studio toolbar under the help button, you've got two helps. One is a local copy, but the developer guide online is regularly republished, so that's got newer information than the locally installed one. So if we find any new bugs that haven't been reported before, I'm adding some information to that or fixing issues with that. So the online developer guide is more up to date than the locally installed one.
Okay, great.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. See if
I stop sharing. Oh, you've done it already.
Yeah.
There you go. Well
done
done.
that, and then go back to the map to close out. Okay, so I hope you all enjoyed that, and thanks for attending. As I say, we're really grateful that you're persevering with this. Next steps, obviously, as Nick just mentioned, we'll send a copy of that workbook app out probably Tuesday of next week once All You Do have initiated the marketing campaign. There'll also be a link to a recording of this session as well if there's anything you want to review, and that will also include, that email will also contain a copy of the App Studio resource map with links to various things. I did have some questions about the App Studio community, some people having problems registering. I will look into that this weekend, early next week. Your registration should be coming through to me, but I haven't seen them, so I need to investigate that. But as soon as I've sorted that out, I'll get in touch with you so we can test that and make sure that that's working. So other than that, really, obviously we said before that we want to run these clinics quite regularly. So I think the next one, although we don't actually have a date or time for it, but I think it will probably be about the 3rd week of March. Again, if you've registered for this one, you'll automatically get notification of the date and time for the next one, and the opportunity to again submit specific questions so we can address them sort of openly. And maybe perhaps if there are some specific things that you're struggling with, maybe we could even get to the point where we can then do screen shares with you in real time to see what the issues are and see if we can actually fix them during the session if time is not an issue for people. But I think that would probably be around about the beginning of the 3rd week of March or towards the middle of that week. So other than that, thanks very much for your time. Thank you, Nick, again.
Well, I'd like to add my thanks to yours. Thank you, everybody who's joined us this afternoon, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we'll be in touch with you again shortly, I'm sure. Thank you all very much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.